How's it going, guys? I hope all is well. So, just wanted to go over a couple of things for an F-Body Camaro. So, this is a fourth generation F-Body. It's a 2000 Z28. So, basically, I kind of want to just go over the common problem areas with these cars and some of the things you're going to want to look out for if you own one. Or if you're interested in buying one. I will say they are great cars. I've had this one for close to 14 years now. Um, and I've pretty much done every single thing you can do to one of these cars as far as like changing things out, swapping out parts. And we'll go over all that today. And we'll talk about exactly some of the things you need to expect, some of the good things about them, some of the bad things about them. And yeah, I noticed there wasn't really a good video about this anywhere. So I figured I would make one. So, little intro on this car. So this is a 2000 Z28, originally an auto 5.7 LS1 car. So basically, I've had this car since I was 20 years old. It's the shell has 170,000 miles on it. And essentially, there's nothing on this car that is factory still. So pretty much everything, with the exception of the rear end housing, yes, it's still a factory 10-bolt housing. I have either switched out, swapped out, changed, upgraded, whatever. And of course, over the time that I've owned it. So starting with the engine. So the engine is a 6-liter LQ4 with a Texas Speed cam. I believe it's a 245 cam, something like that. It's a pretty big cam, very choppy, on a 112 LSA. And I've got a wet plate nitrous kit. It's got valve train upgrades. It's got a Corvette intake manifold on it, a newer, I think it's an LS6 intake. Long tube headers, no cats, straight out the back to a Gibson exhaust. So that's the engine. So it put down about 410 wheel horsepower with no spray. Which is pretty good for an LQ4 6-liter, but basically just a cam and an intake. Oh, I've got bigger injectors on there. So they're actually injectors out of I believe, SN95 body style 5.0 Mustang. So with the Mustang injectors, they flow at a certain rate on the Mustang fuel system, but with the Chevy fuel system, they flow at a higher rate. So it's kind of a good hack to get a set of high flow injectors without a whole lot of money. Then moving back to the transmission, which you obviously can't see, but that is a Performa-built 4L60E. They say it's good for like 700 horsepower, 700 foot-pounds of torque. It's been a great trans. I've got a 3200 Circle D stall converter on it. I've had no issues with that transmission, the one that's currently in the car. Prior to that, I had replaced it. The factory transmission blew up. I had another local shop build me a performance one, which is actually in that box over there. This is going back years now. Once I put the 6-liter in it, was doing some test passes and blew 3rd and 4th gear clutch packs out of it. So that's going to be the first common problem on these. If you have an automatic car, the 4L60 is glass. It will break with stock power. 3rd to 4th gear shifts at wide open throttle are a total no-go for a stock 4L60E. If you build it right and you do it right, it will be a great transmission. But if you don't, just expect it to blow up because they're just gonna. There's none that haven't. They basically all do it. Moving back to the rear end. So this is a factory 10-bolt with Moser hardened gears and axles and a TA performance girdle. So I don't do crazy launches. I have Nitto NT05Rs as drag radials. So I'm not running, I'm not running a drag slick on this car because this is kind of a do-it-all car for me. So, and then obviously in the back, you got your nitrous tank, which is over there, and the bottle heater. So yeah, the 10 bolt's been fine for me. Again, I'm not doing super hard launches. To be fair, I did replace the gears and everything on it. I haven't had any issues with it. Then it's got, I believe these are EBC rotors with EBC pads, and then BMR springs, and basically BMR and or UMI, everything underneath. So it's got the torque arm, it's got lower control arms. I've got subframe connectors over there for it. That's the torque arm. Sorry, that's the pan hard bar. and energy soy bar and links. So basically what I've been doing with this car is fixing underneath it. So as clean as this car is, it did have some rust. So you can see right there, you can kind of see where I just finished up doing a patch on the floor. I'll show you inside the car. But this is like going to be one of the common problem areas I'm going to talk about once we get to that point. But you can see the exhaust there, all that good stuff up front. And again, BMR springs with KYB AGX shocks front and rear. I'm actually putting Coney shocks on it while I've got it apart. So that's going to be done soon. So that's pretty much what's done to the car. Like I said, basically everything on the car has been touched. It's got a trans cooler gauge. The interior is super clean. I wanted to keep it basically stock. You got your nitrous bottle heater and your switch. And then, I reupholstered the leather. And other than that, it's bone stock inside. I even have the factory radio. When I bought it, it had like a 90s style double tin in it, but you don't want any of that. So this is what the floor patches look like once I finish them. I say that. You know what? You might not be able to see it. You know what? I'm going to post pictures in this video of the floor patches because I already put the interior back together and I don't feel like taking it back apart again. So that ain't happening. But anyway, insert photos here. So, yeah, and then obviously the SLP lid. I've got an ABS delete for it. So because GM... Again, another thing we're going to talk about, common problem. The GM ABS boxes are known to go bad. So it's got an ABS delete with a proportioning valve. And so those are the lines for that. Racetronics fuel pump in it. That's the fuses for that. Catch can, which doesn't need, and a coolant catch can. And then some splatter paint because I've had this car since I was 20. All right. So common problems with these cars. So I guess I'll just start from like the top and work your way down. So actually, you know what? Why don't we start with the powertrain? We'll start with the powertrain. So common problems in the powertrain. LS1, bulletproof. The 5.7 is bulletproof. I blew it up with nitrous. I found larger than I would have liked metal chunks in the oil at about 165,000 miles on the car. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to swap out and put in a 6-liter and build it for spray with an iron block. So that was what I did. But other than that, that engine was great. There's a couple things. If you put a cam in them and you start spinning them up to higher RPMs with the 5.7s, you're definitely going to want what's called a trunnion upgrade. The trunnions are basically what the rocker arms ride on. They're like a little bearing, and they eat themselves and fall apart, and you get terrible rocker noise, and you can mess up your entire top end of your motor. So definitely, if you're doing a big cam, you got to do a trunnion upgrade. Outside of that, there's so much information on the LS motors. I'm not even going to go into that because that is not specific to this car. That's specific to that engine. So we're going to try to stick to things that are specific to this car. So moving back to the transmission. So the 4L60, they're basically junk when they're stock. They just break all the time. Like I said, stock power on a tire, you're going to blow the transmission. Third to fourth gear shifts are what really kill those trans at wide open throttle. So I had when I bought the car, it had 100,000 miles on it. So you figure, however many times the other person did it, but I blew it up within a year of owning it. And again, I was 20, I'm always hooning around in the thing, but I pretty much just blew it up, just cruising down the road and hammered down in third gear, downshift into second, and blew third and fourth gear clutch back. So that's the transmission. Again, there's tons of information out there with the 4L60s. The 10 bolts. So they are again, another thing everybody hates on these cars for is the 10 bolt rear ends. So yeah, if you have a manual car, a T56 6-speed, and you are launching it on big knobby or big old drag tires, yeah, you're going to blow the rear end. But as far as me, this rear end, I've probably put 30,000 miles on the Moser hardened axles, and that's with doing autocross and drag racing fairly regularly with the car. And again, I don't have a slick on it, but that's kind of what kills the 10 bolts is the heavy launches. But for me, the rear end's been good. So if you're not running big old tires, I wouldn't worry too much about swapping the rear end out, at least not as a first modification. All right, so that's kind of your undercarriage issues. They kind of like to eat through wheel bearings, you know, but like these cars are so easy to work on compared to new cars, guys, that like I wouldn't even be concerned with any of this stuff, honestly, if I were you, because it's so easy to just everything on these cars is easy. There's really no annoying things. Oh yeah, if you have air conditioning, which I don't, but if you do have AC, the spark plugs are one of those things. So you can see, so that's, you know, this is on the passenger side of the car, plug, you can't really see it, and you literally can't see. I mean, you can see it, but if you don't know where it is, you ain't finding it. You pretty much can't see that fourth plug. So in order to get to that one, you got to go from underneath the car and come up by the headers. That's the easiest way to do it, especially if you don't have AC, or especially if you do have AC. If you do have AC, it's already a pain. The driver's side, pretty easy. I mean, it's always a battle with like little things in the back of these motors. I would say that's like the only downside is with the way GM designed this. You can see the engine. It's technically, I mean, you know, in all technicality, this is actually considered somewhat of a mid-engine car because the engine is not forward of the tires, which is how they designed it. So you can see the line of the top of the axle line and where the motor sits. So like this is the center of the tire right here. And you can see that the center of the intake manifold, the whole engine, most of the engine sits behind it, which means it's under the cowl, which can make the motor a pain to work on. But suspension-wise, everything else, super easy. Compared to the Fox body, I mean, honestly, they're like about the same. It's still a basic third-gen architecture on these fourth gens, so they're pretty simple to work on. So now let's move on to the things that you really need to pay attention to with these cars as far as getting a clean, nice shell so that you don't end up with just a nightmare of a vehicle. So first thing, rust. All right. These are the spots that I found rust on this car, and this car has not seen winters. I do live in the Northeast, but since I've owned it, it hasn't seen a winter, and it's still started to rust out in some places. First place you're going to look for. We're just going to go like we're inspecting this thing as a used car. Where are we going to look for? First place, behind the headlights. You don't have to take them out. I have them out because I was fixing it. You can see all in there. That was all rust. You can see all in there. That was all rust. And again, I cleaned this up. I sanded it up. You can see all in there. That was all rust. And I got rid of all the rust, and then I painted it with paint match so that it looks decent. Another spot. These strut towers up under the car. So now we'll go together. If you look up in there, right? Up in there, they like to rust out. Okay? Mine is not. Mine's super clean. But some of them like to rust out up in there. Okay? So check up in there. You can see kind of along in here, there's some little rust bubbling there. It's nothing crazy. Generally up in the fender liners in this part of the unibody structure, these cars are pretty decent. If you look under the car, again, mine is really clean because it doesn't see winters and because I've replaced everything on it. But check your radiator support right there. You can see mine is still got some rust bubbling right up there on the right-hand side of your screen. So that's something to look for, okay? Definitely check your radiator support because they like to rot out, and that's, you know, a pain to change, or if you even can. So subframes don't really rot out on these because they tend to leak a little bit of oil, so, you know, you ain't going to lose the subframe because the oil leaks on it. A-arms, lower control arms, whatever, just switch them out. Although, if you do see a ton of rust in the lower control arms, that's a good sign that there's probably some in the rest of the car. So now, we go under the car. Okay? So under the car, this is where it starts to get where you really, really need to look. So starting from the front, you can see the header there, from the front to the rear, you're going to look inboard from the rocker and straight up. We're going in, and we're going to go straight up. That area right there. Okay, so it's in between that frame rail and the rocker, right up in there. That's anywhere where two pieces of metal overlap on these cars, look for rust. Take a screwdriver and poke it. You will find holes if one of these hasn't been maintained well. Up under the exhaust in these, usually pretty decent. Inboard of the rockers, so now we're looking toward the outside of the car at the rockers. You can see the inside of the rockers. All along there. They like to rust there. You can see I just got done cleaning this whole underside of this car.
and just basically wire wheeling any surface rust that I could find and cleaning it up. But I did, where you can see the patches, right? So you can see where the patch was right here, this whole area. On my car, that was all rotted out. And by all rotted out, I mean it was like a quarter size hole that you could see from the bottom. But once I pulled the carpet, you could easily see that it was a much larger issue. And again, what do we see? We see metal overlapping, 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 overlapping. And that's where this all rotted out, okay? So check that on both sides, okay? Now, the other place on both sides, these are your rear seat pans. So we're coming directly inboard from where that rot hole was and just right where you by the exhaust where it dips down. This smooth area right here with that drain plug in it, rear seat pans, especially on the T-top cars, these rot right out, okay? So check that. Both of mine were actually pretty clean, but they're known to rot out. So just keep that in mind. Check your rear seat pans. Up in here, these are your torque boxes, here and here. Get a flashlight up in there and make sure that they are not rotted out. I don't know if you can see with the camera, but just look up in there and make sure they're not rotted out. Onto the pinch welds. This is another major area of rot on these. So where all of this body, like this stuff is, right? And you can see how it kind of just flakes away. Underneath that tends to be a ton of rot. So this is my last thing I need to do with this car. And you know what? We'll do this together because I want to show you guys what I'm talking about. And again, keep in mind, this is a pretty clean car. Okay? So if I get my scraper tool up in there, you can see as I'm scraping, look how I'm just scraping away this body stuff. And what am I finding behind it? I'm finding rust. And if I get up in this corner and I start to peel away this seam sealer that they put in there, you can see all of that rust up in there. You can hear it. Listen. Hear all that? So that, my friends, is rot, okay? Starting, anyway. Again, I'm doing this now because I want to catch all this stuff. But, so that's a spot that you got to be worried about. That seam sealer that they put all up in there, that just rots that whole area right out on these cars. All right, so keep that in mind. Check that spot. Take it, poke it with a screwdriver. If it's like mine where you just got a little surface rust, not a big deal. But poke it with a screwdriver, make sure it's solid. Coming over to the trunk. Your trunk pans. Again, on my car, you can see a little bit of rust there. I'm going to chip that away, but again, that's what I'm talking about, the seam sealer. These love to rot out in here. Mine, again, pretty clean. But this is not a perfect example of one of these cars, which is why I'm using this as an example. Okay, so you can see where there's a little bit of rust coming through there, okay? And you can see there where there was a little bit of rust coming through. When I was redoing this car, I pulled all of this off, the whole back end, and I pulled it all out, and I fixed all the rust that was behind that. So that's just some staining that's left over. None of that is a concern. But you can see on this side where I'm talking about, you see the little pinholes right there? That's from this starting to rot out. So you can actually see how shiny it is. You can see this edge right here. Right there. That's where I chipped away all of it. And up until that point, that was where all the rust was. So again, keep that in mind. Same thing up in here. Behind that area, you can see where I fluid filmed everything. They're known to rot out there. And you can see there I have a nice little hole from where that side decided to leave the chat. Interior wise, it's a 90s GM. Good luck. They don't really have any issues, but it's just kind of not, you know, a lot of people don't like them. They're kind of chunky inside. Your T-tops, they leak. They're probably going to leak on every single one of these cars. And the dashboards are known to crack. Mine is not cracked, but they are known to crack. So this has been already a long enough video, guys. If you have any questions, please ask me. Like I said, I've been working on this car for close to 15 years now. I basically know every single thing there is to know about these. So if you got any questions, if you're thinking about buying one, if you're interested in buying one, let me know and I will answer. Have a good day. Like, comment, and subscribe.